Legendary Motley Crue guitarist Mick Mars made a very interesting statement in a new interview discussing his solo album, The Other Side of Mars, which released last month in February. Mars, of course, was asked about this contentious lawsuit that he filed against his former bandmates in Motley Crue. It all stems from his decision to retire from the road. He contended he was still a member of the band and intended to participate in the recording studio. Of course, Motley Crue released their statement, and it glossed over the fact that he said he was still a member of Motley Crue, and they congratulated him on his retirement. Two different perspectives here. Now, behind the scenes, what we now know is there were negotiations going on about Mars' share of revenue from touring. Mars says as an owner of the business, one of multiple owners, he can't have his share reduced in the band simply because he decided to retire from touring. Of course, he retired from touring not because he wanted to, but because he's been dealing with that very severe condition, ankylosing spondylitis, which he has courageously battled for many years. Now, this was surprising. He filed it last year and gave an interview with Rolling Stone called Mick Mars Goes to War with Motley Crue. And this interview, he really held nothing back. He said a lot, and he had a very fired up tone in that interview. Now, what's interesting is in recent months, his tone seems to have softened. There is some negotiation apparently going on. They're in mediation. From what I understand, I don't know what's going on, but I think you'll find these comments interesting from Mick Mars. But this is what he said at the time the suit was filed. Mars said at the time in June of last year, when they wanted to get high and F everything up, I covered for them. Now they're trying to take my legacy away, my part of Motley Crue, my ownership of the name, the brand. How can you fire Mr. Hines from Heinz Ketchup? He owns it. Frank Sinatra or Jimi Hendrix legacy goes on forever, and their heirs continue to profit from it. They're trying to take that away from me. I'm not going to let them. This was Nikki Sixx's perspective on this. He said, we're sitting there coming back from retirement, and our guitar player can't remember songs. We were there watching him physically fall apart, mentally fall apart. His memory fell apart. We really were, with kid gloves, always trying to support Mick. We've always stood by his side, but we couldn't let his side of the stage just be a train wreck. And now he's only saying these things because he's trying to hurt us. What's the point? He's destroying his own legacy. This was the press release from Motley at the time on October 27th. While change is never easy, we accept Mick's decision to retire from the band. Due to the challenges with his health, we will carry out Mick's wish and continue to tour the world as planned in 2023. It says the absence of any Mars quote was suspicious, and fans learned the full story on April 6th when he filed that lawsuit against the band. Now, Motley Crue's longtime manager, Alan Kovac, is very well known and well respected in the music industry. He was defending Motley Crue. He stepped up for them publicly during the situation, and this was his perspective on the situation. He said, if Mick made these claims in an article or letter, he'd be opened up to liability in a lawsuit. But in California, anything in legal pleading is protected from defamation laws. This just isn't a real case. It's a ploy for media attention. If it was a real case, he would have made the request in arbitration, and he would have gotten these documents anyway because we have nothing to hide. Mars, of course, admits he was struggling at the time, but he says, I was sabotaged musically so they'd have an excuse to get rid of me and bring in another person. The feed of guitar into my in-ear monitor was horrible. It would break up, and nobody else seemed to break up but mine, and they'd switch it to pre-recorded crap from rehearsals when I was just rehearsing the songs. They did it to make me look bad. Nikki Sixx countered that. He said, that's insanity. Why would we do that to our fans? It's really heartbreaking that Mick and his representatives are lying to fans while we were trying to protect his legacy. Dude, we love the fucking guy. It's really scary, him being in this complete hallucination. When Mick came into rehearsals, he couldn't play guitar properly. He just couldn't pull it off. So we have to use tapes and cover it up. He was the only person in the band on tapes. And as I said earlier, it comes down to whether or not the band members can unilaterally remove Mars from their LLCs and deny him money. Different subject matter than whether or not he's going out on tour. If you own the business, does it matter if you're up on stage? It's a sincere question. It says, the point to a 2008 band document all parties signed that states in no event shall any resigning shareholder be entitled to receive any monies attributable to live performances. Now, back in January, there was a big update in this case. The judge ruled that Motley Crue must pay Mick Mars legal bills. But it was also essentially the end of the case as it went into private arbitration. Essentially, the entire lawsuit was about Mick Mars being able to get a set of documents that he needed that he claimed the band wasn't getting them. And to be fair, even the judge in this case said that there were issues with Motley Crue turning over certain records. You can see here, a judge says Crue must repay Mars legal bills after refusing to quickly turn over records in their ongoing legal fight. LA Superior Court judge said the requests were not burdensome, yet Mars was compelled to file suit, and it appears plain that production would not have occurred without it. Mars is entitled to attorney fees. The judge is saying that if Mars hadn't filed this suit, he doesn't think he would have gotten the records. But you got to check this out. It says Mars' court case is now legally moot, but he ruled the band's delay had been improper. But essentially, the court case is over. This is going into arbitration. As you can see, with that core dispute still unresolved and set to be decided by an arbitrator later this year, both sides portrayed Tuesday's court ruling as a victory. So this case is ultimately going to be decided by a private arbitrator. This is essentially a private judge that everybody who was on the contract agreed they would handle something in private arbitration, not in a courtroom. It's relatively common, and this is why it seems to me like there may be some positive developments happening behind the scenes that we're unaware of, because it just kind of seems like Mick Mars' tone is changing a little bit, and his statements are very interesting. He says in this new interview that he can't even guarantee that he won't end up a member of Motley Crue again. So this is what Mick Mars said in a new interview with RiffX. He said, "I'm not upset or any kind of thing like that. It's normal. It just happens. It just happens. I can't say it's the end of my association or even being in the band. When I retired, I still made myself available for new songs, short tours, one-offs, or residencies, and stuff like that. But I had this ankylosing spondylitis, and that intense touring at my age just got to be pretty rough, and that's about it. It's going to be what it is, and I have to leave it at that, but you'll follow it and know what's going on." No doubt anything can happen in this situation, but Mick Mars says he can't even guarantee it's the end of his association or even being in the band. I wonder what makes him think that. And the way this arbitrator decides this case is going to be very interesting, where if he's just admitted back into membership in the group, what does that do to all of the planning that Motley Crue has done over the last year or more? They have a new record that's going to be coming out that they produced with Bob Rock. Of course, they've got John 5. Really important to note, John 5 and Mick Mars are on good terms. They're longtime friends. Mick Mars is publicly supportive of John 5, which I just think is awesome. So there's really no question about whether or not John 5 is going to stay with Motley Crue, because Mick Mars is not going to be touring. He retired from that. Whether or not Mick Mars, though, will be in the studio with Motley Crue is a whole nother thing. And man, at this point, when you've got John 5, it kind of answered the concerns that Motley Crue had. We know that Mick Mars is not going to be touring with them anymore. I think it would be a nice compromise if you had Mick Mars in the studio, maybe working on a few songs with the band. I don't know if they have time to do a whole album, but the financial issue is what this is all going to come down to. Is he going to get the same percentage he's always gotten from shows if he's not up on stage? And if he's an owner of the business, is he entitled to that? It's complicated. I sure as hell don't know the answer. I cannot predict how this is going to play out, but I do wonder how you think this is going to play out. Do we have any experts in this? Anybody ever been through arbitration before? Let me know. And as always, that's your latest update from Rockfeed. Appreciate it if you took a moment to subscribe right here for the latest news and updates.